Hi everyone, welcome back to the garden, or polytunnel at least. Today is one of those grey, blustery January days, the stormy days following the real cold spell. The wind is howling outside, the rain has been falling down, and it's definitely a muddy mess out there. Not the best day to be trampling around, but a fantastic opportunity to share with you first some of the most exciting plants for our brand new garden project, and those are the trees. Yes, behind me on that raised bed, we have some of the most unusual, beautiful, amazing and rare trees we can get hold of and grow here in the UK. Trees that can really add, hopefully, something very special to this new garden project. And as you know by now, I've talked about it a few times, trees for me are something that gives the most pleasure over the years. Planting small, watching them grow tall, what an absolute privilege. So in today's video, I want to share with you some of the trees for this project, a very exciting video because these will really form the backbone, the structure of the design. I want to talk through what I've gone for, why I've gone for it, and where I'll be planting them in the garden. So let's get into it. Luckily then, the recent storm has barely affected us, but when it comes to the cold spell, well, let's just say things were a little colder than I expected. Yes, here in this polytunnel, -7.2 was the coldest. I've got another one of these thermometers in the jungle garden. That got to around, I think it was -6.6. So out there in the new garden, beyond the end of this polytunnel, I imagine it got closer to around -8. Chilly stuff indeed. But most of the plants I kept in here, the exotics, you'll be pleased to see at the minute provisionally look pretty green. All the ones that I wanted and expected to be green look good as well. A couple layers of fleece have even kept these Xanthodecia Hercules beautiful and green. So all's good on that front. But today's video is about these plants here. Trees which have been kept close to the house, just away from the coldish weather, but I don't want them to actually spur them into growth here in the polytunnel. So we're going straight back after the video's finished. But let me tell you, these little twigs here are some of the most exciting plants in the garden. So let me go through them, starting with my very first choice. I've braved the outdoors then to share with you the first tree that I ordered for the new garden. Certainly chilly out here, but this tree is taller than the polytunnel, so it'll have to do. Yes, this tree I ordered last summer, when the land behind me was a very real possibility. Obviously, I planned to plant it in autumn. I didn't really know the journey that I'd have ahead of us, but at least we've got the garden now, so I can finally begin dreaming and looking ahead to planting these in the late winter time. This tree is a Katsura, or Cercidiphyllum japonicum. You might know it as a toffee apple tree, caramel tree, or candyfloss tree. All very sweet trees with a delicious scent. And that's the main reason why a lot of people plant this tree. Not particularly rare, this beauty from Asia is an incredible tree. When it comes to size, ornamental trees where I ordered it from say that it gets to around 6 by 4 meters in 20 years. But a lot of places class it as a medium tree, whilst other places class it as a large tree. In its native habitat, there are trees in Japan, I believe, that have got to 45 meters tall, which is a properly big tree. And one of the things I will stress as we go through this video, a lot of people, when they're looking at trees, really underestimate the sizes. A small tree is still a very big plant. A medium tree is even bigger still, and a large tree means a very large tree. But this Katsura, from what I've seen of them planted in the UK, the largest, oldest examples look like a lime tree. So quite tall, relatively narrow. Some of them can be multi-stemmed or multi-trunked, but overall quite a graceful, beautiful tree that doesn't spread out too much. I have seen photos of some really incredible examples over in the USA and Japan where they've become completely beautiful, statuesque monsters over hundreds of years. But I believe I've got room for a grove of these. I ordered this tree initially back when we first moved to this house 5 years ago. This Katsura was going to be one of the first plants in our garden, but I actually had a bit of indecision. Our garden is only 7.5 meters wide, but now the new space is twice as big. I've got room for some. This Katsura, why would you want to grow it? Well, very simply, it's got beautiful autumn foliage. I will be talking about a lot of these plants when they've grown a little bit more, when they're displaying their seasonal beauty to its best potential, and when I understand a little more about the care requirements here in the UK. But I just wanted to give you guys a first peek at some of the most beautiful and amazing plants going into this new garden design. So the Katsura tree, in spring, you've got lovely foliage, a range of different colours. From what I can see, they really are quite a variable tree. The foliage changing from purples, reds, yellows, oranges, to a very, very vivid, lush lime green. So honestly, it's a tree with a bit of everything. I've seen it in small gardens, but I believe it should be planted with a little bit of care. One thing though I will mention about the Katsura, as much as I want the garden behind me to be, we'll say, quite resilient to climate change and not need a huge amount of care, these are trees which generally prefer ordinary to quite moist soil. So if you've got very free draining soil, if your garden becomes completely parched and dry during the summer months, maybe this tree isn't one of the best. But if you've got a sensible spot for it, these trees offer a very graceful beauty. You've got lovely foliage in spring that changes colour in summer, a beautiful dappled shade, and then in autumn, the fireworks really begin with a range of hues from oranges, reds, yellows, purples, everything in between, and that beautiful scent as well. I can only imagine on those mild, still autumn days, that scent lingering in the air. Well, that's what memories are really made of, isn't it? So I haven't just bought one. Another wave of storms then is just passing through, the rain falling around me now in the polytunnel, so I'm pleased I've come back inside. But yes, most of the trees behind me are deciduous, and most of them are skewed towards beautiful autumn interest. I have talked about in my garden design video how I want real seasonality from this new garden, and autumn for me is something I really want to bring home. I want to add to the evergreen exotics with a fantastic, beautiful, spectacular display of all the colours these trees can offer. And Cercidiphyllum really has to be there amongst it. A truly beautiful tree. Not many of the trees and plants I've got in the garden are going to be natives, but that doesn't mean they're short on wildlife value. However, there are some like the Katsura, which I've honestly just gone for the ornamental value. I do think though visually, they complement a lot of the more native and planted trees around the countryside beyond there. So they don't stand out. I don't think they clash with it too much. So hopefully something that fits in nicely and as always, provides beautiful habitat for the birds. That rain now really starting to come down. But anyway, I did a bit more Googling. As always, the more you look into plants, the more specific, niche and rarer forms you can find. For these plants, I've gone to some of my favourite unusual specialist nurseries and a couple more that I've never used before. So let me share with you the one that I went with next, which is this one here. This is Cercidiphyllum again, japonicum, Plum Custard. You might find when you're looking at trees, there's certain varieties that might be called forms or clones or selections. Those are either trees that have come from a specific plant that had amazing characteristics, something a little bit different, a little striking, that they've either grafted or propagated on, and this is one of them. I believe this was selected by Nick Mason himself, and as the name suggests, Plum Custard, it has the most beautiful purple and yellow colourings. I don't think it's currently available at Pan Global Plants, so sorry to do that to you again. Yes, even with trees, there's still plants I mentioned that aren't available. But this one, if you just Google, I'll put it in the description below, Cercidiphyllum japonicum Plum Custard, you will see exactly what it might look like. Lovely purple, lovely yellow, and both of those are colours that I want to bring into the new garden space. So hopefully it complements a larger standard form very well, and hopefully it also adds something a little bit different. And then this one here is from Bluebell Arboretum and Nurseries, which is a supplier I hadn't used before until late last year, but I've had a few plants from them, definitely a few plants. And this gorgeous one is Cercidiphyllum japonicum Strawberry. So yes, if you look at those pictures, again, I'll link to it in the description below, you will see an exquisite red colour. Honestly, I think these trees, these are going to be some of the star performers when it comes to autumn interest. This tree grafted, so you can maybe just see there where essentially a cutting has been taken from a very special form that worked into the rootstock of a standard Katsura, and there we go. Hopefully a beautiful tree. Doesn't look like much now, but honestly, I'm incredibly excited about these trees. And I think if there's going to be a tree which I plant in multiples to create a kind of relaxed woodland grove effect, I think these are a fantastic choice. You've got beautiful foliage, you've got a graceful look, and you've got something that could be a backdrop to some really exciting, unusual trees in front. So let's go on to the next ones. Well, it's time for the next group of trees then, and group already given away that I bought multiple ones. That rain followed around me. I apologise for the lack of any kind of production value in today's video, but that doesn't matter. Because for the next group of trees, you've seen Cercidiphyllum, which means leaves like a Cercis, so to tie in beautifully well with them, it would have to be a Cercis, wouldn't it? Cercis canadensis. This tree, I believe, is definitely underrated in UK gardens. You don't see enough of them. The Eastern Redbud, the American Judas tree, this fantastic tree has a lot to offer. They don't grow particularly huge. They're relatively slow growing. So for me, where I've got lots of borders that potentially cut into the garden or near the telegraph line where I don't want anything too tall, these trees will be fantastic. They help give me that sense of perspective. I'm thinking the Cercidiphyllum close to the back of the garden where they can get as big as they want without a problem. But these I'll have close to the front where the garden just basically envelops the circles. I think these would be beautiful. Well, why would you want to grow these trees? Cercis canadensis are fantastic. You can maybe see there, I'll just try to show you the label. But again, I will link in the description below all the trees that I've bought. These I got from Bluebell Arboretum Nursery. They truly are fantastic. I remember seeing these for the first time, or noticing them for the first time, over at Chatsworth, which is one of the reasons why I mentioned Chatsworth House and Gardens in my garden design video. Walking through the woodland there and seeing these trees, it really is a beautiful experience. The leaves themselves are heart shapes, which is obviously lovely and everything, but it's more the colour of them that really grabbed me. In autumn, the leaves, they turn fantastic shades of reds, purples, and when they're backlit by the sun, wow. Just like the Candyfloss shrubs that you may have heard me talk about in autumn, and you may well see again in an upcoming shrubs for my brand new garden video, slightly predictable there. These look magnificent with the sun behind them. It just lights the leaves up, all those beautiful hues. So this one, the leaves will say a purpley greeny colour. They probably go more green in summer, and then in autumn, that's when the real spectacular show kicks off. Honestly, phenomenal plant, beautiful colours. You do actually get some flowers in spring, pink or purpley flowers appearing on the branches before the leaves form. So there's extra interest there. But if I'm honest, the main reason I've got these is for, yes, in summer, I've got more leafy goodness, quite large leaves as well. So they fit that whole kind of exotic vibe. But the main reason I've gone for this is very simply the awesome show. They truly look spectacular, and a tree you should definitely check out. Great for small gardens, but you don't just have to go for the standard form. Yes, here we've got Cercis canadensis Merlot. This tree has the most beautiful, thick purple leaves. Absolutely magnificent. I'm asking a lot of imagination today. But honestly, when you see it, these heart-shaped leaves, I believe this one can handle drought a little better than the first one. Again, it doesn't grow massive, but truly an amazing plant. I want rich colours like purple in the new garden. I think they really show off the vibrant greens so well. This tree, I'm really looking forward to planting it. And potentially, I might have one of these two either side of one of my pathways to really form that kind of archway over the top of it. But I can worry about that in another video. I was just planning to stick at 2 with the Cercis, but I actually saw this one over on a trip to Brigg Garden Centre. Beauty here, quite lopsided, but for me, this might work very well near one of the boundaries. And this large tree, I would obviously prefer to plant small where I can. I just think trees grow so much better from small sizes. This was 30 quid. So yes, it's definitely not an insignificant amount of money, but for a tree this big that promises so much beauty, it looks healthy to me. You've got to have 3 of them, haven't you? You have to do it. So this beauty might be going up near the hedge or tucked into the boundary a little bit more, but it'd be great to have repetition of the foliage. I really like that sort of heart shape of foliage. So now we've got at least 6 plants or trees that repeat that through the space, and those will be added to, I'm very sure. Obviously then, I could have just left things there, and the garden, I'm sure, will be beautiful and have enough structure to really pay off over the years. A trio of Cercidiphyllum from Japan and Asia at the far in the garden. A real focal point, performing through the seasons, but particularly in autumn. And then, closer towards you as you enter the garden, we've got the Cercis from North America. Beautiful smaller trees, lovely purples, rich tones, good big leaves, and definitely a fantastic tree, smaller spaces that doesn't get completely massive. Definitely could have left things there and had a beautiful garden planted around them, but obviously I didn't. So it's time again to go plant hunting, this time to northwest China. Well, obviously I didn't, I just went on a few specialist websites and did a bit of research, but you know what I mean. This tree is actually one I heard mentioned first by Dan Pearson, a garden designer who I mentioned in my recent garden design video as saying really inspired a lot of the plant choices, styles, and overall themes in this new garden space. And this tree here, Malus transitoria, comes, like I said, from northwest China. A beautiful crabapple. Now, yes, I've already got quite a few little apple trees down there, and I could join them with some more apples. There's plenty of interesting crabapples that keep their fruits well into winter. If you look for something with an AGM label, it's going to be a great plant. Lots of beautiful crabapples, plenty stay small, plenty of fruit that persists all the way through winter. But why have I gone for this one in particular? Well, it was reading about it on Dan's site, Dig Delve, and finding out why he chose it. He chose it because the leaves are actually very similar to hawthorn, so it doesn't stand out hugely in summer. The leaves do blend in. So for me personally, I wanted something to go behind the existing apple tree at the back of the garden, something to sort of merge the garden in to the countryside beyond. So something that nicely fits between the apple tree and the hawthorn hedge is an apple tree with hawthorn type foliage. So for me, it works perfectly, but it still has that exotic twist to it. Yes, it's got lovely yellow autumn foliage from what I've read, but the actual apples themselves, very small and very rich, bright coloured things, and the birds should hopefully love them. Yes, although I ordered this tree late last summer, seeing the birds enjoying the apples under those two apple trees, they've completely cleaned it out during the cold spell. That really emphasised my decision that this is a fantastic tree for my garden. And to get as much wildlife in as possible, I need to be giving them food. Not just food in terms of bird food I'm putting outside, but food from the trees and other plants themselves. So this Malus transitoria should fit in very well. Again, bought small, this should grow relatively quickly. It gets to, we'll say, a medium-sized tree, small to medium, nice and vague as ever. But like with all apple trees, you've got beautiful blossom foliage in spring, you then got the summer green foliage, and then you've got the autumn colour as well. So it ticks a lot of boxes. But this choice isn't just for me, it's mainly towards the wildlife. But hopefully a beautiful little crabapple, something a little bit different for the far end of the garden to help blend things into the hedge and really allow the garden to be home to so much more wildlife. Now, on the subject of wildlife, I know there'll be some of you who would say, George, why didn't you plant more native trees in this brand new bit of garden? You could have planted several oak trees and enjoyed them. Yes, I could have. We have got a lot of large mature oaks around here, and you will be pleased to know I have actually sown a lot of acorns this last autumn with Harriet, and those will be planting somewhere in the village with a bit more space to enjoy them, where hopefully they'll have a home for years and years and years to come. But in my garden here, I do realise that you can't control what happens to a garden after you die. Let's be blunt about it. You can't control it. So I wouldn't want to plant anything that literally has centuries and centuries of possible lifespan somewhere where it might be obviously in the way for someone else. And also, a part of my enjoyment of the garden is exploring unusual plants, plants that fascinate me. But that doesn't mean that they're devoid of wildlife benefits. A lot of the plants and trees I've shared with you, they will be fantastic for wildlife. They'll be home to birds, a lot of different insects, and obviously the more trees we can plant, the better for the environment. Let's be honest about that. But I did want another oak in the garden. However, this oak is not your English oak. This beauty has ginormous leaves. These leaves get up to 30 centimetres long. This is a plant that has been on my list for many, many years, but I first saw in person over at the 50 Shades of Green garden. I'll link to Andrew and Anne-Marie's Tree Paradise in the video description below. This oak here, Quercus dentata, Carl Ferris Miller. What a fantastic plant. These leaves, you can see the oak holds onto them well into winter, as oaks tend to do. They really cling onto the leaves, only let them go in late winter, early springtime. So you've got that bit of visual interest as well. I believe, it depends where you read, this plant has reasonable autumn colour, but the main reason I've gone for this tree are the amazing leaves. They get huge. Yes, as regular viewers will no doubt know, I have got a bit of a soft spot for trees and plants that are weirdly oversized, and this oak, as well as a couple of trees to come, is definitely that. The leaves in this oak, like I said, get up to a foot long. How bizarre is that? This particular one, you can see, is actually a double trunk. So let me know your thoughts about that. Usually with a large tree, you'd prefer to have a central strong leader at this stage, so maybe chop that one off there. But as this is a foliage plant, very slow growing, potentially the more leaves I've got lower down the better. Let me know your thoughts. Should I chop that one off or should I keep it? I quite like the idea of having something a little bit quirky and unusual, so maybe I'll keep both trunks. That's what I'd like to do. But this beauty, this is one that I didn't plan for originally, but I'm sure I can find a home for it. Yes, it's an oak tree. Yes, it can potentially get to around 15 metres, but incredibly slow growing. So something that I can work into my woodland area or closer to the side of the garden quite nicely. A beautiful tree. To be honest with you, it's more the bizarre nature of it as much as the beauty that grabs me. But a fantastic oak tree, slow growing, but one I'll definitely look forward to appreciating the garden over the years to come. But there are faster growing trees, and let me talk about one right now. The Quercus dentata and Cercis then, they came from Bluebell Arboretum Nurseries, a fantastic range of truly unusual plants, and I think they got an offer at the minute, so definitely check it out. But you'll be pleased to hear I did actually pay for all these trees and shrubs myself with my own money, taking advantage of offers when they came up. Just because I've had a couple of sponsored videos doesn't mean I'm a complete sellout, does it? But when it comes to the next tree, it's one you've seen before. This beauty here. Yes, like the Malus transitoria, this came from Pan Global Plants, one of my favourite specialist nurseries for all things exotic, unusual and exciting. This is Pinus engelmannii. One of you actually commented on one of my Facebook posts recently saying I wasn't pronouncing Pinus right. And I should say I'm more than open to anyone correcting me. I don't speak Latin. I didn't learn Latin at school, didn't go to one of those schools. But let's face it, a lot of us are just guessing at plant names. Most of them are derived from ancient language anyway, so there's always an element of interpretation. So my feeling is sort of go with what I think's right, or go with what someone more knowledgeable than me has said, and just say it with confidence, and that takes you a good way. So Pinus engelmannii, I'm pleased to say Google does back me up, but there is also an alternative Latin pronunciation, which is Pinus. Now, regular viewers and people who comment, I know what you're like, so I won't be using Pinus. And for me, Pinus, pine, it sort of makes sense anyway, so I'll stick with Pinus engelmannii. Anyway, you have seen this tree before. When I first bought it, I spoke about it. A fantastic evergreen. I love Nick Mace's plant descriptions. He described Malus transitoria as one of the finest crabs, and this one here is one of the best foliage trees we can grow in the UK. Coming from North America, I absolutely love the long needle pines. Are they tropical looking? No. Are they exotic looking? Absolutely yes. But in this new garden space, I don't have to fight about distinctions and styles anymore. I'm growing whatever I want to grow, and this will definitely be there. Yes, when they get a bit bigger, I did actually have some pictures of a mature example sent. They do look fundamentally, in old age, like a normal pine tree, but with longer needles. But for me, these long needle pines really look the best when they're small. When they get to maybe 2, 3, 5 times the size of this, the foliage looks so oversized and fluffy. They really do have an amazing look to them. So this one I'm thinking when you first go into the garden, and there's a little border just restricting your view into distance a little bit. This is one of the trees I was thinking about planting there. So it also ties in very nicely with my existing Pinus patula near the 5-pit area. So a truly beautiful pine, faster growing than the oak, exquisite foliage, and it's also an evergreen as well. I think this will tie in very nicely with a lot of the exotic planting and also some of the other trees that got planned. There are a couple of very rare trees coming up, ones which I absolutely had to find a space for in this brand new garden. But before that, an unusual tree, one which isn't planted all too often, but truly a stunning one you might have heard of. This is a Persian ironwood, Parrotia, persica, and this form is Persian Spire, which is more compact. Persian ironwoods, fantastic trees, beautiful autumn colour. Again, continuing that theme. This one again came from Bluebell Arboretum Nursery. Try and share with you the label there. That is what the leaves, when it wants to focus on it, look like. Oops. Yeah, that didn't happen. This is a Parrotia persica. You can see on the label there, just looking at that before the pot broke, beautiful maroon purple tinge around the edge of the leaves. They almost look like a hazel leaf. Remember that when we come to the shrub video. Truly a beautiful thing. In spring, you've got lovely new purple foliage. Then in summer, that beautiful purple lining to leaves. And in autumn, the tree becomes aflame with orange and reds. An amazing, amazing plant. John Massey has shared his love for this tree. Honestly, a lot of respect for John and Ashwood Nurseries. A fantastic place I'd love to visit one day, and his passion for plants really speaks loud. But honestly, this tree is one that I wanted to find a home for. It doesn't grow hugely tall, and it's called Persian Spire because it does have more of a compact form to it. But let's face it, I do need trees that don't get massive to go under the lines on the sunny side of the garden. So I definitely want to have some trees outside, but not colossal ones, not ones that are going to reach over the hedge too much, and definitely not ones that are going to grow tall enough to affect the lines. So definitely this tree is going to be one which finds a home there. This also might be a very helpful tree just because of its form to neatly block verticals. Verticals like the telegraph poles I've got in the distance. And these are all things that I need to consider when I actually choose the spots for my trees. Yes, I've spent too long now talking about my actual design, but when it comes to actually placing specific trees, I need to be in the garden, I need to have some borders dug out, and I need to kind of see what I'm blocking, the shapes I'm trying to create. But I'm really looking forward to this one being a building block of the garden to come. Fantastic tree, but let me share with you a couple more rare ones. Right, I'll be honest with you, this tree was an absolute must-have for me. A tree which I remember seeing and thinking, I wish I could find home for that in my current garden. Unfortunately, we couldn't. Well, now we have, and last summer I ordered this. This one came from Pan Global Plants. And in fact, I'll read Nick Mace's description of it, and that'll give you an idea. This is Neoshirakia japonica, otherwise known as Sapium japonicum. Obviously, you'll know that. This tree, a hardy deciduous large shrub or very small tree from the Far East, grown for its superb and almost unsurpassable autumn colour. The smooth leaves turn from dark green to astoundingly bright, glowing scarlet and crimson late in the season, often with bright yellow on the inner branches. One of the few woody members of the spurge or euphorbia family, hardy in this country and rarely seen or offered for neutral to acid soil. Well, we have got neutral to slightly acidic soil. I want some trees for autumn colour. This one appears to be truly amazing. One of the best trees you can grow for autumn colour, and one which should be grown more in this country. Kind of looks like a cherry tree leaf, but the colour, the saturation ramped up to 100. It really is truly beautiful. And it's also not the biggest tree as well. Don't get me wrong, there were some large trees, Nothofagus, I believe it is, the southern beeches, and a couple of other big spreading trees, which even in our garden, I wouldn't have space for. It is still a garden, not parkland, it's not a real field. But to get more trees in the garden, I have to have a range of different sizes. I'm already thinking about that. So yes, this Neoshirakia, beautiful smaller tree. I believe when it comes to size, it says here, large shrub, very small tree. So we're talking probably in the 4-5 meter region. Those compare very nicely with the taller varieties I've already shared with you in this video. So this one is actually so good, I didn't just buy one, I got a second one from Bluebell Arboretum Nursery to help make up an order and take advantage of their free postage. So these definitely beautiful large shrubs / small trees, and I hope they will blur that boundary between some of the exciting, beautiful autumn colour shrubs and then the trees that I've already talked about in this video. So definitely looking forward to these. Honestly, if you look at Instagram, you will see pictures of these trees. I thought I'd chosen out the most weird, rare and unusual trees for this garden. Not that that's always the mission, only to find on Instagram, possibly thank you to algorithms, so many people put up incredible pictures of these trees. Honestly, an absolute must-have for me. But there is one consideration. A lot of the best trees and shrubs for autumn colour require full sun, or at least a decent amount of sun, to get the best colour from them. So having another tree which performs in shade would definitely help as well, wouldn't it? Well, that's where the final tree of today's video comes in. Well, there might be one or two other trees going into the garden space, but I need to have a good think about those and decide if I'm brave enough. But the last one for today's video is none other than this here, Lindera obtusa loba, the spice bush. This fantastic tree performs in shade. You get beautiful yellow autumn colour, even when it doesn't have full sun. This is another Pan Global special, so because I bought it from you, Nick, I'm going to read your description out. One of the finest of all medium to large sized deciduous hardy shrubs, although it's basically a small tree, grown primarily for the superb broad, entire to prominently 3-leaved foliage, basically quite big exotic looking leaves. The leaves turn to a deep rich yellow in autumn, potentially turning to orange-red, scarlet or purple later, especially if grown in sun. Well, we'll see how much sun I've got left over. A mass of mustard-coloured flowers are borne in clusters on the bare branches in early spring, although I'm more about the autumn interest, followed by globular black fruits in autumn, usually regarded as requiring a neutral to acid soil. Yep, this has been observed often growing on limestone in China. This tree is from Japan, China and Korea. And again, I'll put a link to this in the description below, so you can have a look at all these trees and see the puzzle pieces that I'll be playing with putting this garden together. A truly fantastic tree. So we've got a bit of a blend here. Yes, I know some of you might want to see more natives in there, but I will be planting more hawthorn, there'll be more native hedging going in, and a lot of the trees and also shrubs in particular, and climbers I'll be planting, have got berries, they've got flowers, there'll be a lot of provision for birds, bees and everything else. But when it comes to the trees, I finally got space for some of the beauties that I've been looking at, lusting after for years. Plants like this, definitely on my list. So it's going to be an exciting garden, full of a range of autumn hues, but hopefully equally special through early spring as well. So many of the trees that I've shared with you flower in early spring. So that's definitely a, we'll say, unplanned bonus to a lot of these tree choices. But let me know your thoughts. Which of these trees would you grow in your garden if you had the space? Where would you place them in the garden? Have you got any fantastic companion or combination ideas? Let me know your thoughts. Generally speaking, my idea is a woodland at the far end of the garden. That's where most of the large trees are going. The smaller trees gradually wrapping around the garden, wrap around those circle shapes, really anchoring the garden, making it feel like a proper special place. And then a few really special ones like this here, growing in the shade at the far end, or what will be shade under the larger trees. So I think really I've got a beautiful mix of trees here, both in terms of botanic interest and in terms of what they give to a garden. When I was young, trees were my first love. I was absolutely obsessed with them. Native, non-native, small, large, deciduous, evergreen, everything. I couldn't read enough about them when I was younger. So now I can really tell you, 30 years later, that one of the greatest privileges of having a garden is to enjoy seeing trees grow. So if you're planting your garden, whether it's small, large, or anything in between, don't just go for the mainstream choices. Don't just go to your local garden centre and choose the trees that are on offer or something you've been recommended off a mainstream programme. Do a little bit more digging. There's so many incredible trees out there. Every single tree I've chosen has got something exciting about it. It might be oversized foliage. It might be unsurpassable autumn colour. It might be something completely amazing about the habit, the scent even. Every tree has something beautiful, so take a bit of time and you can grow something spectacular, fantastic and beautiful in your garden. So there we go then. That's enough for me waffling on about the trees I've chosen. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And hopefully coming up soon, well, let's just say it depends on the weather. If the weather's a little bit drier, you'll get some more garden action. If not, you might well be seeing George's shrubs for his new garden project. We'll see. But anyway, hope you all had a great weekend and I'll see you very soon. See you later.